So I decided to take a psychology course this year, and I can tell you right now, it is not what I expected. I was completely looking forward to learning about the inner workings of a serial killer, and instead I learned about the inner workings of a teenager, which can be just as scary. And I also learned that pretty much every teenager out there is confused, and that psychology is based on a lot of guessing. Now, as a person born in America, with parents born in India, I am privileged to experience some of the best parts of two vastly different cultures. For example, I get to experience Diwali with its amazing fireworks, and I also get to experience the magic of Indian cuisine with its uniquely diverse flavors, so diverse in fact that each of India's 29 different states could be said to have a completely different cuisine. And in America, I get to experience the 4th of July and its dream big, never say never nature. Also, as a first-generation American, I was able to see my parents grow into the culture, and I was able to grow right along with them. And because of this, there have been quite a few embarrassing incidents that had to happen before I could completely function using all the proper social norms. For example, depicted here is my friend's family and I sitting down to eat dinner, and my objective was to get the salt. And in my mind, the quickest way to get from point A to point B was by going straight across. And that is exactly what I did. And I realized that later that was incredibly rude because this was everyone's expressions once I had done that. So I also realized another difference is that in India, it is perfectly normal for a family, usually a family friend, to show up unannounced and have dinner. And the host would be perfectly fine with cooking and sharing the meal. In fact, there is a Sanskrit saying, Atithi Devo Bhava, essentially meaning that guest is God. What does this mean for you? It means that if you haven't been to an Indian household yet, you should definitely try that out. So I basically realized that in different situations with different people, I would have to adjust my catalog of cultural norms. And a lot of the learning I did about the culture came from my friends and their families. In fact, recently I took a trip to India, and it was great. The food was great, and I learned a whole new slew of cultural norms. And I also realized that if someone offers you food, you cannot refuse it. It is considered very rude. Another thing I learned was that except for the way I look, I really don't fit in there. I can't even speak Hindi, my parents' mother tongue. I can understand some, like, basic phrases. If you told me to take out the trash, if you told me I was going to miss the bus in Hindi, I would know those phrases very well. But I can't actually speak Hindi, and that feels like a really big blow, like I let my heritage go. But if you watched a Bollywood movie with me, I would also assure you that yes, the captions would have to be on, because I can't understand Hindi. So I realized that I didn't fit into either of the cultures I grew up in, and this really bothered me. If I wasn't American and I wasn't Indian, then who am I? This is not an uncommon question, and with an increasingly globalized world, there will be more and more people who struggle to answer this question. And that, mixed with the whirlwind of adolescence, is confusion to the power of 10. In fact, according to a Pew Research Center study, 40% of first-generation Americans were feeling not completely American, a good percent of which will feel confused about their identity, especially in the years of their adolescence. And while I personally feel more American than Indian, I still don't feel completely satisfied with that answer. We know that cultural identity is your sense of belonging in your culture, but how do you develop that belonging if you're a part of more than one culture? So I set out to find some answers. I wanted a cure-all, step-by-step guide to help me, and of course I found no simple, straightforward answers. I did, however, find a model mapping out these stages, the most recent of which was made by Dr. Jean Finney from California State University. And her model is summarized for you here, but we're focusing on the middle stage, the searching stage, where an event happens that makes you want to explore your cultural identity. For me, this was my trip to India. And I want to point out that while this model gives you a beautiful overview of what's supposed to happen, the problem with set stages is that people assume the process is concrete, when in reality, it's not. These models are simply a study of human behavior and cannot be followed to a T. We begin to get a problem when people think that identity can be found in a few short stages. How each person finds their identity is going to be different. There is no cookie-cutter way to make yourself feel better about your cultural identity. That being said, the first step for me, as cliche as this sounds, was accepting the fact that there is no easy way to find an identity. It takes time and a willingness to learn and be open. I know I haven't found my cultural identity, but I've started. And it's this mindset that gets you out of the first stage and into your searching stage. You can also try to start off small. Chances are if you try to start off biting something bigger than you can chew, you are going to be frustrated. No chef was born with the ability of making perfect eclairs. They were first learning how to not burn toast, which, by the way, that's the stage I'm at right now. And starting off small can mean any number of things. For me, this means spending at least 10 minutes a day learning Hindi, because my knowledge of the language is pretty dismal. And while this might not seem like too much, it's at least 5 hours per month, which is better than nothing. And if you can't spend time on tasks like these, incorporate your journey into a task that you have to do. For example, a school project. If you are able to pick the topic of your school project, you can pick an aspect of an identity or your culture that you want to study. Not only will this help you feel more fulfilled with the project, but also in the end, the quality of your project will probably be better because you're no longer working for just an A, you're working for yourself. You can also branch out to other people in your culture and learn from their stories and experiences. PhD Monica Williams states that ethnic identity is inherently a social event, meaning that spending time with people from your culture actually makes you feel more connected and increases your self-esteem. An important aspect of this is celebrating ethnic holidays. Not only do ethnic holidays help to increase joy, it also helps for personal growth and expression. These are the traditions that you can pass on and can be proud to have been a part of. And this pride directly transfers into the strength of your cultural identity. Coming to terms with a cultural identity is a journey, and hopefully where you end up is being comfortable in your own skin. For me, this means being able to go to an Indian grocery store and not feeling like I shouldn't be there. It means going to an Indian restaurant and not feeling embarrassed about not being able to pronounce anything on the menu. It means being comfortable with the things my family does differently. And it means being comfortable in either of these combinations because that means being comfortable with myself. Now, this goal will look different for everyone. And I can't speak for anyone's goals, but I can say that it's up to you to start this journey. And it's not a journey that you will regret. Thank you.